Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 12 Gauge Uncut. I promised you Kipp the Animal Buford, and right here he is, folks. So me and Kipp go back a little ways at this point. So Kipp was at the creation point of Rocky Shaw transitioning from a martial artist to a wrestler. So at that point was the creation of, in RWE, as the alpha male Rocky Shaw. And so Kipp here, me and him got to train a lot together. Bob Moss, was sit there. Bob watched probably most of our matches, 90% of the ones we actually had.
The lone wolf out there in the fans out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Kipp is now the head coach. Is that right? Am I right term?
I don't really like to go with titles and stuff, but titles being what they are, so it's like my technical title is studio director, but I just tell everybody, I'm like, just call me Kipp. I was like, it's the same thing. Like, it's like, so.
Well, guys, we want to first of all thank Orange Theory Fitness and Kipp for welcoming us in. We are actually in the studio, so everything you see in the background here is like a gorgeous, it's obviously orange, fitting the name, but the orange and black motif, and we're at Halloween. Well, what other time fits right now?
So yeah, I never thought I'd be like very all about the orange, but I am, man. I really am passionate about this, and we can talk more about how I've gotten into this and what it's done for me in the wrestling world, how it's kind of helped me evolve into this as well.
Yeah. Well, for those, and I know a lot of you are shocked because you knew you're watching right now, and you were like, "Oh, Kipp is Orange Theory," and they're like, "Kipp the Animal Buford, he was a wrestler."
Yeah, a lot of people, they're like, "When did that come about?" I'm like, "Oh man, it was a past life, but it was a good life. It was a lot of fun." So, did the RWE thing. I think we did it 2020. I think like September 2020, we had our first RWE event, and 400 something plus people, and it came out. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I've had a few people since the podcast is kind of getting ready to drop ask me about that. So it's been fun kind of reliving that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to shout out, there's a lot of people, and I'm going to forget some names here that, some of them love us, some of them probably don't, still hate us, but, Sean Hayes, David Holbrook, Caleb Ogles.
Oh, man. Big Cash.
Yeah. TJ. Man, there's so many names, and I'm gonna stumble right here. Cole Ballard.
Mm-hmm.
We had an interesting crew. We had Nick, and we still hate you, Nick. So, but other than that, so it was a good run. It opened up doors. It was an outlaw. We didn't have the training that was really required. Some of us saw some training afterwards. Me and you did a lot of that. Where we were picking Lamar Phillips, Brain, to any other wrestler we got a hold of during that time frame me and you were talking to.
Yeah, anybody that lent an ear let us kind of help out and stuff. And I'll say this, man, about the RWE thing. It was kind of like just David hit me up, and we kind of went back and forth on social media. We did some backyard wrestling many moons ago, and then it was just like, he calls me one day and he's like, "Hey, I've got a ring." And I was like, "You got a ring?" I was like, "What do you mean you got a ring?" And he was like, "You want to wrestle?" And I was like, "Man," it's been 18 years. I was like, He's like, "No, I'm talking about like wrestling, like pro wrestling." I was like, "I'll be there in a little bit." And man, I'm gonna tell you right now, for anybody that's starting out in the business, you don't realize like how tight those ropes are till you take your first hit or you take that first bump. It's not as forgiving as what people think. And there's a lot more hard work that goes into it, and a lot more athleticism than people give it credit for. I'll say that.
Absolutely. I think of all the sports, and I think and most of the people, like football players and so forth that I've talked to, when they transition from that sport to wrestling, they will tell you there's nothing like wrestling condition.
No, and I'll say this because like I've always been in the gym and I've always worked out, and there's a couple of pictures of like I can't remember, it was like Deep South. I can't remember, it was some wrestling convention, and it was me and Bob, Arn Anderson, or as we know him around here, is Marty Lundy, and his two boys at the time. And this was before Brock Anderson got big. And me and Tyler, Jack's, and Bob's oldest son, we were working out in there, and he was like, "Hey, you boys can work out. We've got this going on. Arn Anderson's going to come with his two boys," and we were back there working out and everything. And I've always been a bigger guy, but wrestling really kind of helped me realize, like, hey, I need to be more cardiovascularly in shape, because when you're moving and you're going and the crowd's popping for you and everything, it's easy to get blown up. So that's one thing I really realized, was like, oh, I really got to take my cardiovascular into more importance than lifting just as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what a lot of people don't realize is too, that muscle mass that you have just soaks up oxygen.
Yeah.
So the more a guy that's 300 pounds of muscle versus a guy who's 170 pounds of muscle, there's a whole different gas tank required to function all that muscle with that oxygen level.
Yeah.
And at that time, you were I'd probably say 40 pounds bigger than you are probably right now.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm probably a buck 95 how much I ate that day right now, and I think then I was like 220, close to 230. So I mean, I was a pretty heavy guy, and I mean, hey, 5'8's 5'8. That's all you're gonna get. But and I tell a lot of the people, like, when they come in here, it's like, hey, I know what you feel, like how you feel when you come in here. You get all ramped up, the lights, the music's playing, all that other stuff, and they look at me and they go, well, how do you know how that feels? I was like, because I do. Because when the music's going, the lights are up and everything, the crowd's going, you do get an adrenaline dump. So I had a guy tell me one time, he's like, look, just relax and have fun. Like, and it was the same way going to the ring. It's the same way coming in here. It's like, look, just relax and have fun. Yeah. Like, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to go according to plan, just like you want it to, and we'll meet you where you're at. And that's something that, because I've been thinking, like, how can I explain to people that has helped me transition to where I'm at now, and getting people to understand that, and meeting them where they're at, different things, because you can get blown up pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
You can get blown up pretty quick, but it's just about, finding your pace in anything.
Absolutely, yeah. So talking about that big adrenaline dump, my first one, when it really happened at KLT, with the street fight, they put me in with War Daddy. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, Tania knows, but a lot of people didn't know that match. So they went out there, and honestly, War Daddy and Todd at that time, they were old school, so it was a make or break moment for me. Mm-hmm. So that was throwing me to the wolves, and we went out there, and we were swinging for the fences. Like, War Daddy was pounding me with shots, and in return, I was feeding them right back. We were just, the crowd's like, but my adrenaline was so high. Like, I knew they were good stiff shots, but it didn't matter. I was so excited to be there and out there in the crowd that, we were just feeding that back and forth. And it reminds me a lot of when, like when me and you talked about one of our posts about the birth of the 12 gauge, is when we developed that little spot where Kipp took off a rope and I actually threw a roundhouse kick.
Yeah, and when I say, to kind of go into that, so Rocky had been on me like, hey man, like let's get in here. He told me about you got a metal plate, right? And
my left ankle.
Yeah, so I was like, at the time, you can't ever judge a book by its cover, and I was like, I had worked with some bigger guys and like working around some of their ailments and stuff, so it's like, I could do a baseball slide between their legs, different things like that, and kind of like, again, it's a give and take, and it's a dance, so I was like, so what can you do? And he kind of expressed to me what he could do. I was like, all right. I was like, you can throw a roundhouse kick? And he said, yeah. So we're sitting there, we're rolling around, we're bumping around. And I was like, I'm going to get as close to your foot as humanly possible before you hit me. And man, I'm going to tell you right now, when I say I could smell that man's feet, we were pretty close. I was like, man, I almost lost some teeth on that one. But I'm glad I did, man, because I'm going to tell you right now, those who've gotten hit with it, I've seen the devastation of it, or I've come close to seeing the devastation of it.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully that list is going to continue. So you guys keep in touch. We're gonna work toward that. So tell me a little bit about. So let's go back to, I guess, your mainstay, or I guess where everybody started to know Kipp around here, is the fireman. Is that about right?
I'll be honest with you. I like my mom and my dad have always been like pretty well known people in one aspect or another. Can't give you a long and short of it. My mom's done hair in this town for years and years and years. So, have you ever seen Steel Magnolias? Mm-hmm. That little beauty shop with Dolly Parton and them on? Yeah, that was my mom's beauty shop. Okay. So you go in there and so I like watching that. It sounds weird, like muscular guy saying that, but I enjoy watching Steel Magnolias because it reminds me of when I was a little kid and that was my mom's shop. But people would come in there and my mom would just talk to people and get to know people all the time and stuff like that. My dad was just always just a very good businessman and always just enjoyed getting to know people, how they wanted their house, and he would do everything he could to be creative about it. So I think people just always knew me that I was like Todd and Sheila's boy. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, I always had people tell me, they were like, he's got a showman mentality. And I can remember being in Little League and I'd walk out and I was not good at sports. I just go ahead and tell you I was not good at sports. I'd go out there and I'd twirl the bat and I'd do different things like that. And, so I guess it was just over time and meeting people and knowing people through my parents. But I think the firefighting thing, people got to know me on that because I was very proud about it and I was very happy about it because at 30, saying, hey, I'm going to leave this job that I've been with for X amount of years and hey, I'm going to go be a firefighter. Of course, people were like, well, you're settled into it. Why would you leave now? And I really believe it's because, and here's been my thing, is that I've never done anything to where it's that has made sense to other people. So why would you leave a job? You're established there. Why not? Why not me? Why not me to go do that? And a lot of people were like, well, you're older now, you won't be able to do it. And I think people, I don't know this, but I know a lot of people were like, hey, you doing that and you taking a step and because I share a lot of my stuff on social media and stuff, and I'm not prideful, I'm not ego. I was just like, let's do it. And that helped change my mindset, and I had a lot of people reach out to me. I think that start putting me through that. So, and the RWE thing, boy, that thing caught fire real quick. So, yeah, the fire department, and then when people found out that I was wrestling on the side, I know we talked about it before the podcast. When the big chief and all the chiefs find out that you're a wrestler, at the fire department, you can't keep a secret. I'll promise you that. They'll find a way. So apparently the story goes that all the chiefs were in this room and they had a meeting and they've got this drop-down prompter and they started watching some of the matches and stuff and the promos leading up to our first pay-per-view of RWE Resurrection. And they watched that, and then that night we had a structure fire, a mobile home fire. And I hear one of the chiefs go, there he is, there's the animal, go put it out, animal. And I'm over there working the hose, and I've got my mask on, I'm like, who's yelling at me? So I think that kind of both of those kind of collaborated to people knowing me on that end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I won't go into details, but I know I got to know you during the part, and it's funny because we talked about your age, and too, when I started, and most of the things I started the venture into wrestling at 42, which most people thought was absolutely nuts. Mm-hmm. Kipp was not one of those people. He was like, oh man, you're in good shape, you can do this. What's it matter? So he didn't limit he was one of those people we automatically, was attracted to because he had the thinking of there was not a limitation based on age. It was based on what you were willing to do and what you were willing to sacrifice to get to. And so to this day, I appreciate that. But I also got to know a side of him I watched the man. You can tell when someone that you become a friend with the bond has a true heart. Kipp was and is, I would classify as a true hero. Is when he would have, and there's one particular instance, and I won't bring up that instance that I know that bothered you really bad during that time. Yeah. That you went through, and I saw that affect him, and that's how you know someone has a passion, because in this instance there was nothing you could do, but it drove you crazy because you wanted to be able to be that Superman at that time. Yeah. And be able to solve that solution, and that's. For someone to sit there, because I saw so many people that are in positions like that become hardened and they don't really reflect those human emotions that are still there. They've kind of blocked them off, and that was something that it's just a part of you. I don't think you could have done it if you wanted to.
No, and that's the thing, and I've had this conversation with other people, is that there's a lot of great things that came out of being at the fire department and stuff like that, and a lot of things I'm very thankful for, and a lot of bonds that I made. But the biggest thing was I realized that, like, people don't really share these things that they're going through. They're just bottle them up and things like that. And that's something I share with anybody, and staff included, is I've always been like that, where it's just like, I don't know how, but it's like I just want to make it better, and I want to make it better for the people around me. And like, here's the thing, is that people who know me and like truly know me and care about me, is they know like I'm not egotistical, I'm not, cocky, I'm not arrogant, I'm not any of these things. I understand my personality comes off that way. But it's like when I'm asking somebody, are you okay? It's not to just be like to hear, oh yeah, I'm fine. So no, like when I'm asking you that, I'm asking, are you okay? Because I had a point in my life where nobody asked me that. Nobody asked me if I was okay. Nobody asked me like what I was going through or how this bothered me or how I'm working through this situation. And I've always thought, man, I was like, I just don't understand like where did we go wrong being and I don't want to say society, but it's just like it's a lost art of people just saying like, hey, are you okay? Like checking in on people. That does mean a lot to me coming from you. Like I had no idea. This is what I enjoy about not just these things, but it's just like being open and being like, hey, you were this for me in a time that you didn't know, or different things like that. Because it was tough, but it taught me, hey, we need to check in on other people as much as we do anything else in life, because you just don't know what somebody's going through at all at any point.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I tell people is that like, don't stop believing in yourself. Like you can be anything you want to be, and don't forget to show yourself some grace and be in the moment, be where your feet are and things like that. Because if not, and you live a certain life where it's just like, well, my dad did it this way, my mom did it this way, I got to do it this way. Well, then you're going to live a life of regret of going, well, what if I had taken that chance? Or what if I had stepped out? Or what if I had done this? Or what if I had been there for somebody a little bit more? What would that have changed? And because, there's a poem and it's called The Dash, and I know I'm kind of like, I'll bring it all back around, I promise you.
You're good.
But there's a poem called The Dash, and it's like, you got a birthday, and I'm going to butcher the poem, so I'm not even going to try to like, because Google's not right here with me. But it's not about the start date or the end date. It's about what you did in the middle. And so it's just like, if you want to go and you want to work a job and you want to work that job for 30 years and just keep your head down and grind through it and all this stuff, hey, I got no problem with it. That is fine. And if you're happy with it, hey, I'm happy with it, and I'll love you through it. But, well, you got one shot at it, so why not, for me, go be a firefighter. Go do this wrestling thing that I'd always wanted to do when I was a kid. If I did it for one match, if I did it for 14 matches, if I did it for 1,000 matches, hey, I did it. And plus it gave people something to laugh about, smile about, different things like that. Then that took me to my next avenue of where I'm at now, and then continuing to pour into people and give them confidence. And like you said, because anybody could say, well, you're 42, why don't you want to jump in the ring? Well, why not? Let's just see. Mm-hmm. Let's not, don't put yourself in a box, I guess is the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not going to be 18, we can bounce back from anything, but we can sure work with what we got.
Correct.
So I mean, I hope that kind of all ties everything
It does, and absolutely. And to come around to kind of hit the home that fact as far as because of Kipp and so many of the rest of you fans out there that got behind me, I mean, I did in 2 years what a lot of wrestlers never ever see. Mm-hmm. I main evented the Superstars Fan Fest here in a cage match.
Yep.
I walk out to a crowd and, the pop is unbelievable no matter when I walk out. Mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful for that, but also know that was something, if I wouldn't have took that shot, if I wouldn't have took and had that support system back there to it, but from my wife back here behind the camera, mm-hmm. to you guys, Keith Osmond, a lot of other people around this community, that said, yeah, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're in great shape. Let's give you advice. Brian Price at OTR Wellness for, you know, helping me train in the gym. All those things made that. And you're in what's really exciting now, you're living another dream as far as you're coaching, well, I guess hundreds, thousands of people that come through Orange Theory right now, and you're inspiring not only the people that your clients here, your employees here, you know, and keeping that morale. So you are bringing all these people to their dreams as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing that because I left the fire department to be here full time, and you know, because I always thought, let me back up, and I'll come back to it. The reason why I'm so passionate about, hey, chase your dream, believe in your dream, believe in yourself, keep going, is because, and I talked about this on another podcast, and I've been a lot more open about it, is because there was a time in my life where it's like, so to give you a little insight on me, I couldn't read or write until I was a senior in high school. And I was telling somebody about this the other day, and they were like, what's the hardest thing you ever had to do? And I was like, if we were sitting in class, whoever was sitting behind me, if I knew we had to read something, I would turn around to him and I'd be like, hey, look, I'll give you $20 if you read whatever page we're supposed to read and you say it loud enough to where I can hear it and it makes it seem like I'm reading it. And I had a buddy of mine, he would do that for me. And it got to a point where like we did it over and over again to where he would say it with just enough cadence where I could hear what he was saying so that I didn't look dumb or stupid or whatever, because, I mean, let's be honest, like, you know, kids get picked on and stuff like that all the time and different things like that. So I did that all the time, and, you know, it's just like, finally I had a teacher who found out about it. And he was like, hey, you know you don't have to do that. And I was like, well, I don't know how to. And I was like, I've done it for so long, and, you know, it's kind of like fake it till you make it and all this stuff. And he was like, you can do it. He's like, you just got to figure out how you learn, you know, the best. And so I was like, all right. So he said, just read a chapter or a page of a book. You know, just read it till you get it. And try to sound it out. So I did that. And I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And now it's like, and I talked on this in another podcast, I'll read something 5 times. Because if I can read it 5 times and get it, then I've gotten more detail out of that than you reading it one time real quick and moving on to the next page. Mm-hmm. And it sounds crazy because it's like people will see you now, and they'll go, wow, man, like, you know, you've always done great. Like, nah, man, like, you know, it was like before we got to this point, you know, like, another example is like, you know, people, because of your circumstance, not believing in you and just being like, man, he's just going to be a castaway, blah, blah, blah. You know, your mom gets locked up for meth and its word spreads, and which my mother's sober now, you know. But, you know, when you're that age, people are saying meth jokes to your phone and saying, like, you'll never beat anything because, of, you know, and then it was people always coming behind that and saying, like, it doesn't always have to be this way. So I've always lived with that, and I've always thought if I could ever pour that back into other people and show them that, like, hey, you can do this. Don't let anybody put you in a box, because I almost let somebody else dictate my life. Because in school, they had this lady come in because I couldn't, like, read or figure out these problems as quick as they wanted me to. They're like, well, you'll be, and nothing wrong with it, a vet tech, a mechanic, or this or that or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's wrong, like, because people always tell you, like, you can be anything you want to. And for somebody, especially an adult, when you're a kid, to tell you that, I'm like, that's wrong, man. Like, figure out what I'm good at. I'll work on my weaknesses, but let's figure out what my strong suits are. So it's the same way in here. We get people that come in, they go, well, I've never worked out, or I don't know how to work out, I don't know how to do this. Like, that's fine. We will learn together. We will do it together. And same way with my staff. Like, I'm very blessed to have, like, the staff that I have now, because, man, you do have to be on a lot of times, whether it be coaching a class or being out there in the lobby and different things like that. You always got to be on. But you always got to have people around you that go, hey, it's okay, we can take it from here. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's something I'm always, like, real thankful of, because they keep me in check just as much as I keep them in check. And the members see that, and it brings us all tight and closer together, because the members that we do have here, they go, I never thought I could do this. I didn't think I could do this, or I could ever get back to this. I'm like, man, a little bit of love and a little bit of belief takes somebody a long way. You can take over the world, I promise you. But yeah, and that's what's led me to this, and I kind of see, and I don't know if you can talk about religion on here or not, but
talk about whatever you're uncut.
Uncut. All right, so God makes a way, man. I mean, He does. He really makes a way. So it's just like from being a firefighter, learning those things, and learning how to control your emotions. Because here's the other thing: if you don't control your emotions in certain situations, you'll react to them like a kid. So that helped me with that. Overcoming obstacles and overcoming things and pushing through that adversity as a kid and being like, I'll never let anybody, if I've ever made somebody feel that way, I'd regret it and all that other stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to let people not feel that way. To, the wrestling thing and being in front of a big crowd, playing off people's emotions and all those other things. Again, controlling your emotions and all that other stuff. And then to this now where it's like, hey man, like it all comes together. Because when I was 30, I thought, well, this is just my life and this is what I'll do from now on. And that seems so long, but like you said, you did more in 2 years when you put your head down and you keep going. Just like me, in 4 years, I said I want to be a firefighter and a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. I said I don't know how, but I'm going to make it happen. And I feel like through that, I've done more in 4 years than I did, my young adulthood of trying to figure out what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And because you just say, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to lose money. I'm probably going to do this. I'm probably going to do that. But there'll be a way and we'll push through it. And here's the other thing. There'll always be somebody there besides you be like, hey, keep going, push through that wall. Because on the other side, it's like I tell them in here, guys, like, cause an all out is like where you're running real hard or power walking at a steady incline. I tell them, guys are walking recovery on the other side. It's the same way in life. Life's gonna feel very uncomfortable for a little bit, like an all out. On the other side, there's a walking recovery and it gets a little bit better. So that's life and times of Kipp Buford.
Yeah, well,
but I mean that's kind of paints that picture for you.
It did, and you told me a lot of things that it's funny because, with a struggle, all of us that have saw success have went through a big struggle. And Kipp talks about that being in school from the, not being able to read. Dude, I was in school and I was labeled the same way as far as I had the principal tell me, because my father was in prison and Rocky Sr. had a notorious name around here. Mm-hmm. And I had the principal tell me, every time something happened, he said, I'm going to watch you because I know exactly where you'll wind up. Just like your daddy, you'll be in prison. Mm-hmm. And every time something went wrong in school, if something failed, there was trouble, I was the one that took the blame because, that was my role. Mm-hmm. And so I became an angry kid during that time because it was always going to be my fault anyway.
Yeah.
So, had a chip on my shoulder. But in the same way, it forced me to be that person, but like I'm going to show him. Mm-hmm. I'm going to graduate, and he's going to have to shake my hand and hand me that diploma. And I walked up that thing, and I smirked and stuck my hand out and, took my time to make it, just stared him in the eye, shaking my hand and let him know that I passed through that. Mm-hmm. And, but again, we all come from that, once I was doing it, I was put in a special ed, early on in my thing, not because I wasn't smart, it's because I had, ADHD or whatever they call it, and I didn't learn like everybody else, and I got bored quick.
Yeah.
So, while everybody else was, I could do it, but I didn't take notes. I'm an audible person. Mm-hmm. If you gave me a class where you require me to take notes, I was going to fail it because I can't write and listen at the same time. It just doesn't. I don't absorb the information that way. Mm-hmm. Now I can sit back and listen to you the entire time and ace the test. Mm-hmm. But during that time in school, I had so many teachers that required me to give them notes, for everything. So, but that's interesting to know exactly how you're learning. So, I was told by, I don't know if Todd Sexton gave a wrestling seminar here last weekend. Mm. And Todd's had a good point. He said, every wrestler that I've met is broken in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and it's because we all go through that life struggle somewhere that other people haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But where we excel, just like you have, is you take those disadvantages in life and turn them to an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So we know how to fight harder than everybody else for something, for the smallest little thing.
Well, and that's the thing, man. It's just like you don't really know what somebody's going through, and I see it more and more as I get older. What happens is that men don't talk about their problems because men are broken. It's suck it up, you butt it up, all that. Well, here's what happens. If you don't know how to control your emotions and you're not talking about them, then you are going to feel broken. We're all broken. There's nobody that goes through life unscathed or unscarred or anything like that. And, I see a lot of my friends like doing things where they're like not listening to their wives or not communicating. And I'm not just saying like for men, but I know it's for women too. And a lot of people, they just shut down. They don't communicate. Well, here's what happens. You keep closed off and you keep that stuff building up. Well, then nobody knows how to help you.
Yeah.
Because communication is key, and it's a lot like a wrestling match. If I'm hitting the ropes and I don't know what you're fixing to throw, hey, I'm probably going to lose some teeth. And life is a lot like a wrestling match. You're going to hit the ropes, you're going to hit the mat, and you're going to bounce, and you're going to get back up. But it's just how you communicate and how you work through the match. And in life, it's going to show you through the other side. For example, you can't, it's just communication has to be there. It can't be an open door, closed policy. And if you don't know how to do it, just like me with like trying to figure out how to read, just get started. Start talking. Like figure something out. Because, it's just like men have the highest suicide rate, different things like that. And it's just like you have to communicate on what you're going through. Because if not, it'll consume you. And then, hey, guess what? What you and I are doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't communicate and we didn't share those things and we weren't apt to pushing through adversities and getting through the other side, we might not be here, but we are. You just can't give up, And that goes back to like, you sharing that about, somebody putting you in a box saying like, oh, you'll be in the same place, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mental switch that has to be flipped inside of you to say, that's the last time somebody's going to say that to me.
Yeah.
That's the last time somebody's going to put their finger in my face and say, hey, because of you, you're going to be here because I know who your parents are, or whatever the case is. And to them, I have to say this, it's because of you, or people like you, not you, but you get what I'm saying. You mold champions. You mold people who overcome adversities and push through different things. And because of people like that, in my life and in yours and so many others, you get an opportunity to now, and I'll say this on camera, I'll say this to anybody, and this is where I will be cocky and arrogant about some things. Because of those things that's happened to me, I don't think that there is somebody more knowledgeable about certain things than I am. Especially when it comes to, I'm sure there is. I'm not going to say I'm the greatest in the world, but I will say because I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to go get it, and I found something that I'm really driven about and helping people get there. I don't think there's anybody that better than that because I had somebody tell me, well, you'll just be this. Well, now it's driven me to where it's like, no, I'm going to be the best at whatever I'm doing. Even if I was a janitor, I was like, I'm going to mop the floors the best. I'm going to do this the best. I'm going to find what I'm passionate about, and God's going to make a way. It's the same with you, man.
Yeah.
I know you were working a job and then you got into the wrestling thing, and because it's like, it's something we've always watched or something like that. And you just said, hey, I know this sounds crazy. Because when I explained to my dad I was doing it,
Yeah. I
said, hey, I'm going to do this wrestling match, and there might be 30 people there, or there might be 100 people there for my first wrestling match. I was like, I'm going to do this thing. He was like, that's crazy. I was like, I know, right? It's awesome, isn't it? And, but it was just one of those things, and like, I got to have a match with my brother at ringside, and we did in a cage, and there's a picture of me standing on the top rope, and I've got my arms up, and my brother, he's pointing at me, kind of doing the Scott Hall thing like that, and, we got to share that together. And my dad was really happy about that because, I remember us being little kids and being 12 years old watching Goldberg take Hulk Hogan up and take him down on Monday Night Nitro. Now, we can go into the holes they should put down a pay-per-view, but hey,
right.
That's another thing for another day. But I remember sharing that moment with my dad and my brother, and whenever I look back to when I was a kid, 1998 was a great year to be a kid for me. And then I got to have a match. My brother is the manager, and man, I think he's better than Paul Heyman. I put it out there.
Yeah.
As a heel manager, and you get to share things like that in life because somebody's like, "That's crazy," and it's like, "Yeah, but we're gonna do it, and it'll be fun." And I think you just gotta say, "Hey, I know this sounds crazy, but just believe in me, and I promise you, there'll be some good come out of it."
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, man, I know I ramble sometimes.
No, that's great. That's the heart of what makes a good podcast, is just when things flow naturally and you just, because there's a lot of things here that I wouldn't have thought to ask you that you've actually told us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of things that there's people on the other end of this, and I know because I've gotten feedback that are going to hear these things that they're going through right now, that we're going through, or they went through, and they're going to find some inspiration in that because they were like, that sounds just like my problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we all attract similar people to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be great. So tell me, as of right now, Kipp's future, as far as, tell us a little bit about artistry, kind of give us what you want to tell these people about, coming in and seeing you and things like that.
So the biggest thing I'll tell you is this, is that I guess the best way I can do it, I can do it. Man, look, there's nothing like what we do. And I know we're not your mom and pop and all that other stuff. Man, let me tell you something. More life's not something we just put on a wall. More life is something we're about. And here's the thing, man. You got one life from the time you're born. There's an expiration date somewhere. You got it, I got it, we all got it. Are we the cheapest? No. Are we the best? Absolutely. And like I said, man, I'll put that down by anything because here's the thing. Is we are heart rate monitor based training, 1 hour full body workout. It is group fitness with a personal trainer touch. We've got treadmills, rowers, weight floor, Bosu balls. We've even got dumbbells to go up, Davies. I promise you. Check that out. But it's the most fun that you'll have in an hour. Because here's what you're going to get. You're going to get like-minded people who've been in your situation and thought and looked at themselves in the mirror and be like, I can't believe I let myself get to this. And that's fine. We'll get back. Because with the heart rate monitor training is that it helps us monitor you just as well as you monitor yourself. Because again, going back like when we were in the wrestling ring, I got blown up because I thought, well, I'm working, I'm going hard, but what am I really getting out of that?
Yeah.
If I can't settle myself down, stay in a steady heart rate zone, I'm not going to be able to burn fat and build muscle like I want to. If I'm just, there's other places out here that are just like, all right, and go. And I've had people tell me, they're like, nobody takes their time like you guys do. There's nobody that does this. There's nobody that shows me. There's nobody that believes in me. There's nobody, it's just take my money and go. And like, man, you can pay for it now, you can pay for it later, and you can get some real results out of it. So we are backed by science, driven by results. So the biggest thing I can tell you is, whether it's with us or something, man, just get started. And here's the other thing. My crew that I've got, we're all goofballs. We're all like, little dorks and things like that, but we all come from a place of, somebody didn't believe in us, and everybody on my staff, they all know that, and then we pour into other people. I will say I feel like I've got the best staff out there, and I'll put it out there like that. I do feel like you are somebody when you come in here. I was on a Zoom call one day, and they said, well, nobody's going to remember 500 people's names when they come in the studio. I said, we will. We will do that. Because at the end of the day, we always make you feel like somebody and someone, and you'll never be just another number to us. The loudest person in class is just as important as the quietest person in class. So that's what you get when you come to OTF Rome. And like I said, man, I'll die on that hill. There's not a lot of things I'll die on, but I'll die on that hill.
Yeah. And I can attest to, as far as, and I know he won't mind me mentioning, so Artegas Newell.
Yeah, man.
Art came to me and Tania probably a year ago, or maybe somewhere. Is that about right?
2 years.
2 years ago. And he had some health issues. He had, done like all of us. He got to a point where I got to do something. And so we started, in my side is I always going to start with the most obvious. Let's talk about what you're eating in the diet. And so we started there, and Art was stubborn. Art didn't want to give up fast food and things like that.
Not many of us do, man.
Yeah, but so we worked on that and went back and forth, and I got him in the gym, and he was doing good. I mean, but Art needed a little bit more direction and and weights were really the perfect thing for him. And I think and so when he moved at a certain point, he come to me and said, "Hey, I will try Orange Theory Fitness." And I was like, do that. If you feel like that's going to work, I don't care what you do, as long as you do something. And if that works better for you, then please do so. And man, I saw a transformation in him. He sends me pictures. He sent me one just a couple weeks ago. And he is living it up in Atlanta.
He is. And let me tell you something, man. This goes to another thing I'll say about Artegas is he came in one day and I was walking out and somebody else was coaching the class, and I just kind of met him briefly, and I was just like, "Smell like them socks," because I'm kind of a sock nerd.
He's a sock man.
And so we kind of bonded on that and everything, and he took a couple of my classes and he ended up joining, and he always had the best retro 90s shirts.
Yes.
Every time he came in, so I'd always talk to him about that and stuff like that. And then it was one day after class, he was like, I just feel like I don't have a place. I don't feel like, I belong anywhere, and blah, blah, blah. And we stayed probably 45 minutes after close. I sent the girl home that was working the front desk because I knew she was ready. And I was just like, man, I got to be in this moment with him. And he shared some things with me that I was very appreciative of. And I could tell if he had shared those things with anybody else, they would have judged him on the spot. And he just kept coming, and he kept coming. And I know he worked with another shout out, Corey Pitts. And he worked with Corey, and he worked with us, and he lost. And again, it just goes back to, one, just get started. Two, make sure you got the right people around you, believe me. And he's lost, I think he's lost 50 pounds. He came by, and he was like, "Hey, I might have to cancel my membership. I'm moving to Atlanta." I was like, "That's cool, man." I was like, "I just want you to be happy."
Yeah.
I was like, "We all, always stop back in, all that stuff." Man, he gave us big hugs. Man, we were up front. We were cutting up with him. And he just really appreciated that. And then that goes from somebody that didn't have a place to when he got ready to leave and move to Atlanta, you could tell he was like, "Hey, I'm whole, man. Like, I'm."
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful thing to watch, is watching that grow and different things like that, and watching people grow their confidence. Man, I'm telling you, I'm kind of like Deion Sanders. They ain't got to pay me to do it, but boy, I'm glad they do.
Right.
But at the same time, there's no amount of money that anybody can give you to watch somebody grow their confidence back. Because, man, we're not in the losing the confidence business, we're in the gaining the confidence business. And I got to watch him grow his, and I've watched so many others. So Artegas, if you watch this, one, tag me in it. Two, proud of you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all proud of you. So keep it up. And I will tell each one of you, I want to thank Kipp for this time. And I want to tell you right now, and look at both of us, no matter where you are, now's the time to start. Call Kipp, come see him. I mean, don't just tell him, say, I saw your podcast. It inspired me to come in here and get started. I want you to come into Orange Theory Fitness. And if you're watching somewhere else, there's other Orange Theories. Mm-hmm. So go out and get started. If they don't have an Orange Theory, there's somewhere for you to get started. If nothing else, look at your diet, cut out the sodas. But you can make some kind of change today that'll help you. Do like we said, talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Me and Kipp, I've reached out to Kipp some other times if I'm just having a bad day. If you got to blow off some steam, talk to a friend. Find someone who won't judge you and can listen to what you got to say. But for Orange Theory Fitness, for Rocky Shaw and Kipp Buford, Kipp, thank you so much for your time. And until next time, beware the 12 gauge.